Welcome to the Sheepdogs Union report for June and July 2023. We're going to be tackling some issues here, and we're going to be putting together some dots that you probably don't put together. But once you put them all together, it's a cabal of anti-Christianism. Let's get started. This comes from the California Family Council. You can go to californiafamily.org and look up some of these stories, look up some of the issues. The first one is called AB 979. Now, what this does is to send your employers or employees or anybody that works and has a public company will have to go before a board of California Board of Diversity. That's what it's called, the California Board of Diversity, and you will be forced to hire people in a diversity group. That would be your LGBT, that would be your people of color, that would be minorities, that would even be some people that's here, well, let's just say they got here illegally. But you will be forced to hire them. That's the first issue. Now, what that means, back in my day, we used to call it tokenism. When you hire somebody because of a quota, that was a thing back in my day. But that's basically what it is, and it's been put into law. Now, not to be outdone, Senator Scott Wiener thought he can top that. Now, keep in mind, Senator Scott Wiener, that's his actual name, Wiener, actually did something that, well, the Dodgers, let's just go back. The Dodgers invited the Twisted Sisters of whatever, better known as the Nuns of Perpetual, or no, the Sisters of Perpetual fill in the blank. And instead of, we have the Dodgers situation, Scott Wiener said, you know what? I'm going to invite them to the Senate, which would be our second story. Scott Wiener invites and gives Twisted Sister nuns an award. And her name is Roma, Sister Roma, like as in tomato. He gives her an award on the Senate floor. Now, I know there's homelessness. I know there's, we have illegal alien. We have fentanyl. We have people breaking the law. Stores are leaving. People are leaving in droves. What does he do? He invites a man who dressed like a demonic clown or demonic nun and gives him an award. This is your vote counting. This is what you voted for. Anyway, I'm not talking to the Christians, I'm talking to everybody else. I know the Christians didn't vote. I know they did. Anyway, okay. Not to be outdone, he also has a war on the nuclear family with the bill that repeals Proposition 8. Now, Proposition 8, if you don't remember, we voted on Proposition 8 about 8 or 9 years ago, before Obama, when Obama was running. That was 2008, I believe. And most of California rejected the idea of gay marriage. But not that when Kamala Harris came along and her cohorts, and what they did was they turned the will of the people and made it into law anyway, despite what we had voted for. So what he wants to do is he wants to take the words, only marriage between a man and woman is valid. So he wants to put the nail in the coffin. Now, we're going to be talking about Scott Wiener quite a bit. But, in fact, here's another one that he co-sponsored. This is AB 957. Now, I know we've been joking around, but this is very serious. Now, it's broken into two parts. The first part says, if you're having a custody battle between you and your wife, the parent who is in favor of gay affirmation, trans affirmation, is probably going to win that case. The law points towards that. That's what this proposal, the first part of this law does. Now, you may say, well, what does that mean? Well, in the case of the Canadian father who didn't want his son to be transitioned into a girl, he ended up going to jail. That was in Canada, though. But this law, they're proposing that law here. Now, the second part of AB, write it down if you need to, 957 says this: it would completely give the authority to the state by Section 3011 of the California Family Code to remove the child from the parent's home if the parents disapprove of the LGBTQ and so forth ideology. I'll say it again. They can remove this. That's what this law does. So he wants to split. What he would like to do is split up the family. Something that God ordained. Okay? Okay? That's part of it. Now, we're going to move on to another issue. Now, this actually comes from another organization. This organization is called Real Impact. They're a great resource. You can go to them and find them at realimpact.us.com or just type in realimpact.com and their website will pop up. You can go to press issues and they got all kind of neat little resources on there. Now, one of the what happened here is AB, that's AB, Apple, Bob, 665. It passed in April with the vote of 55 to 9. 16 members didn't show up because they didn't want any blood on their hands. Now, what this did was this eliminated the right for the parent to be notified if their child was mentally diagnosed and needed some kind of treatment. That sounds kind of noble, that they're looking out for the child, but they're keeping the parent from knowing. Well, that's because something else is at play. In other words, if your child can't figure out if they're a man or if they're a woman, if they can't figure out what gender they are, they can actually put them under treatment. You do via a counselor at the school. And they don't have to tell the parent that they're doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first stage of what's called grooming. That's what this is. And they want to make it into law. The second part of that same law, this is AB 665, says this: a professional person offering residential shelter to young people as young as 12. In other words, even if a person is just 12 years old, and if they feel that the parent is a threat to that person's health, remember, they consider health mental health. They're not talking about real, physical abuse. They're talking about if you don't agree with that child, that child should be transitioned. Now, keep in mind, they've been feeding this child with information. They've already been working on this child. And now they want to legally kidnap the child because they don't have to tell you which shelter they're putting them in. They didn't even have to tell you from get-go. The next issue, this is SB 596. This targets parents who speak out to defend their children against in their innocence. In other words, they can bring charges, misdemeanor charges, on the parent that threatens an employee of the school district are under what they call emotional distress. You know what that means? If I don't agree with you and it makes you feel kind of funny, or you don't like it, that's distress. You can be now arrested underneath this law if it passes into law. So we have to fight these issues. Now you can go to Real Impact and find out more about this particular proposition and issue. Okay, the next comes from an organization known as the Advocates for Faith and Freedom. What they're doing, now this is a good thing, they're bringing suit against the California Department of Social Services. Now, what the Social Services was doing, that they would permanently cut out public funding for school, for the feeding programs at the schools if they were religious based. In other words, if you had a lunch program or if you had some kind of feed, if you were giving away food and some of it was coming from the state, this law makes sure that if you have a school that's religiously affiliated, like a Catholic school or a Jewish school or a Christian school, you don't have access to those funds like every other 501c or like a 501c. Okay, they're also fighting a case against for the Pines Church that was denied long-term rental from what was called the main high school in their local area because they were biblical. Now, they were already renting the building. And every Sunday, that's what a lot of churches do. They rent school buildings in small rural places. Well, once they found out their policy, they refused them because of their religion. And that is against the law. Okay, so the advocates for faith and freedom are fighting that. Now, we have some guides that you should download. Okay, that's going to help you with navigating this anti-Christian surroundings that we're in. Okay, the first guide is called the Parent Resource Guide for Understanding Transgender Issues. Okay, the Parent Resource Guide for Understanding Transgender Issues, and you can download that by going to genderresourceguide.com. I'll say it again, genderresourceguide.com. Now, when you type in gender, the G as in gender, the R as in resource, and the G as in guide have to be capital. So that's capital G gender, capital R resource, capital G guide.com. Okay. The next one comes from First Liberty. Now, First Liberty is a very good resourceful group. They're a team of lawyers, plus a lot of advocates and a lot of information. Now, the first guide you need to get from them is called Upholding Title VII. Now, what Upholding Title VII means is it's connected with the civil rights movement of the 60s. That it has to do with the Act of 64. And then what this does is protecting religious employees from discrimination. So if you work at a job and they discriminate against you, especially if you're a teacher, if you're in the nursing field, they want you to help with abortions when it's against your religion. Or if you're a doctor and they say, oh, well, you have to do abortions, or you have to help with transgendering, you have to do that kind of stuff. I don't want to do that because no. These are your rights. You need to find out about them. If you have a job and you write something on your social media and they find out that you're Christian and you don't agree with the company, and there's a lot of woke corporations out there, and they will fire you. They will find out and fire you. There's a lady right now, a case I was reading about with First Liberty. She's a flight attendant, and they wanted to endorse what's called the Equality Act. And the Equality Act, which in short has to do with demonizing and criminalizing Christianity. If LGBT issues come up versus Christianity is going to lose every time because that's the new religion. Well, she wasn't with it, and the airline fired her. So she's fighting. She's actually suing them, and First Liberty is taking that on. Now, the last one I want to talk to you about is this one right here. It's called porninschools.com. Porninschools.com. It spells like it sounds. Now, what that has to do with is misinformation that one side is putting out, saying that the other side is banning books. There's no such thing as a book ban, because a book ban would mean that you could not even publish or even print that book on U.S. soil. That's what it means. That means that if you were printing it, if you were distributing it any kind of way, and if you were coming up with the literature, producing it, you would be breaking the law. That's what a ban actually is. Okay? Now what we have is parents who think that it's an inappropriate literature that's being distributed through our school system and through our libraries. Now, what this toolkit does, I hope you can see, I'm putting it in front of my face. If you can see it, this is the toolkit you will receive. It's like 20 pages, and it's chocked full of information. In fact, a lot of the books that they're saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with that book, this is okay, they actually have the book. I don't know if you can see it. They actually have the books lined here. Oh, I'm sorry, lined here, and what's in them highlighted, so you can read it for yourself. Now, I'm going to tell you, in some of the board meetings, a lot of parents try to read this book in front of the board members, and the board members would cut their mics off because it was so disgusting. but yet you want our kids to, it's okay for our kids to read. So anyway, that's the last one. This comes from porninschools.com. They're part of First Liberty. So I would really, I'm sorry, wrong one. I want you to really look into this, really download it, distribute it among yourselves in church, okay? And in your groups and among your friends and with your relatives. So anyway, that's the end of our report for this month of June, July 2023. Remember, vigilance, unity, and action. That is the Sheepdogs Union. You can find Sheepdogs at emptytombmedia.com. That's emptytombmedia.com. Look for the sign, look for the page of Sheepdogs. Am I right? My wife she's giving me the big She loves me. Anyway, we'll see you until next time.